Okay, this is, what is this in history? What is today? My phone refuses to tell me.
It's Sunday, August the 7th.
August the 7th. 7th. What's this? 7/7.
No,
Is this is 8/7.
8/7.
8/7/16. Remember that date.
8/7/16.
Okay, this is,
Are you recording this?
I'm recording now. And when we get through, you're going to have to tell me whether I need to post this or not. And that's why I have a disclaimer here in writing. And you'll figure that out as we go along. And so to get started, we're going to ask Gary to open with word of prayer.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to hear your word through Carl. Thank you for the opportunity to gather here without fear, reprisal, and terrorism, or whatever else you want to call that stuff. And pray that you just direct him and give him this word without his changing things. We know that he has taught us so well these years. I ask you to bless him. Look forward to what we're going to hear. Give us ears to hear, eyes to see. And just on the side, just keep our families safe and healthy. We pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. Okay. First, a disclaimer, scriptures of the day. And I'm going to document some strange goings on in the world. And then the question is, what does all of this evidence point to? And then finally, we'll have a conclusion on Enter the Dragon. Now, I am not a smart person. I have very average intelligence. Whenever things come to me, like this came to me, it comes out of the blue. I wasn't thinking about it. I had in the very back of my mind a thought in Revelation 12. There was a sign in the heavens. Remember, the woman clothed with the sun, moon under her feet, 12 stars on her head, corresponds to a time which we have determined to be September the 23rd, 2017, and it doesn't occur ever again, as far as we can tell. Now, along with that sign, there was another sign. And this was the sign that I had in the back of my mind I'm going to do some research on someday. And that was the sign. I also saw a fiery serpent in the sky. And the serpent had 7 heads, 10 horns, and all that. And I said, well, that is a symbol of the Antichrist kingdom, right? We've been over all of that. But I thought, wait a minute, why is that symbol in the sky? And I thought, that's probably pointing me to one of the astrological signs, maybe Draco, the sign of the dragon. And so maybe I should go at some point and look that up and see, what those stars mean. And that was just in the back of my head. And then Sunday after church, this is when all this happened. The content, opinion, observations, and conclusions of this presentation is the sole responsibility of Carl McPherson and does not represent the views or knowledge of New Hope Baptist Church, its staff, or its trustees. The viewer is requested to consider the content with the understanding that there may be other conclusions supported by the evidence and that Carl McPherson may be insane. So let the hearer beware. The viewer is asked to independently study the evidence and be able to defend your own conclusion. And finally, may God have mercy on us all if I'm right. Here are the 2 scriptures of the day. Another sign appeared in the heavens, and behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on its heads. My people in Hosea, which we read, are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected the knowledge, I will also reject you from being a priest for me. Because you have forgotten the law of your God, I will also forget your children. Heavy emphasis here on my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. When you leave here today, you will not leave with a lack of knowledge. Here we go. How you doing? There are these things which we talked about in the past. Obama quietly orders $1 billion worth of disposable FEMA coffins. Obama has been operating behind the scenes to prepare an action in case of an American revolt that will not only squash the revolution but kill many of its participants. The first step in this action would be to disarm the American people, throw away anyone that is or might be a threat in a detention center, a FEMA camp. During the course of this revolt, many will die both in battle and in camps, an inevitable circumstance that Obama has already prepared for. Here is the FEMA camps near you. Look at them. They're preparing for something. There is the sign. It's called a Disaster Recovery Center. CIA relocates to Denver. What has that got to do with anything? For the first time, a whistleblower within the Denver International Airport confirms the existence of a massive, deep, underground military facility located on the airport's property. The Denver International Airport is nestled on a vast 53 square mile complex owned and operated by the city of Denver. It is the largest airport in the United States in terms of landmass garnered, and in the second largest airport in the world, next to Saudi Arabia's. The mural in the airport is bizarre. I want you to look at this. You have got fire coming out of the trees. You have got a person right here looking up into the sky. Children with dour faces holding animals. There's something going on here. What in the world is happening? Now this one, look at this. Here we have death, apparently coming from the sky with a huge sword, and it just killed the bird of peace, the dove of peace. And we have a person down here, a child, grabbing a teddy bear, sleeping on bricks. Buildings destroyed.
And that's a military looking.
It looks like a military sort of guy.
It's
but
like a German
it looks like a German
Nazi uniform.
yeah, with a gun and with a sword.
And this person here that's crying.
Looks like an AK-47 too.
Yeah, it is. And look at all the people lined up here, holding their heads.
Is it a Holocaust? It looks like you could probably say that's a Holocaust because you've got the bombed out buildings, you've got the people mourning, you've got
This is not a good sign. Whoever allowed this to go on knew something behind the scenes. The CIA has plans to relocate its headquarters from its domestic division basically to Denver, and they're going to relocate underneath the Denver airport. Why underneath the Denver airport? FEMA, DHS, and secret orgy of preparedness at secret underground mountain bunker. While a growing community of individuals is set out to prepare for a collapse of society and become known as preppers, the real preppers are in the highest levels of government. They are all ready to evacuate and continue government in the event of an all-out breakdown of society. Not only is this secret continuity of government action happening, but it's accelerating. They are absolutely getting ready for something on a grand scale. They have over 103 underground bunkers constructed in the United States that cost over $20 billion apiece. You recall a story with Rumsfeld some time ago. He was being questioned by the press. They lost $2 trillion out of the budget. And Rumsfeld was sitting there, I don't know, $2 trillion was here a minute ago. I don't know what happened to it. $2 trillion. Where'd it go? Why are we $20 trillion in debt and nobody in the government seems to be worried about it? Russia prepares underground bunkers in the Urals. In the Ural Mountains in Russia, there is a 400 square mile facility underground that they have prepared. Are they looking for nuclear war? Svalbard Global Seed Vault. Millions of dollars were prepared and were used in the construction of this seed vault. All seeds from all over the world have been taken and stored in this seed vault. Nobody ever asked the question, why? What's going on here? In Scotland, same story, underground facility in the mountains. DHS to purchase 62 million more rounds of AR-15 ammo. They're purchasing them for training purposes. Give me a break. You don't purchase 62 million rounds for training. How about this? They're buying 1.6 billion rounds of ammo of like 9mm, pistol size. Why do you need that kind of ammunition? That's for law enforcement agents in training. They're going to train for the next 500 years. They are gearing up for a total collapse when they cannot manufacture bullets any longer. Jade Helm. We all know what Jade Helm was. It was right here in Bastrop. People were up in arms over what they saw. What they saw was an attempt laying the groundwork for martial law. Now, if not now, sometime soon. Now, this was a briefing that was not published, but it occurred in 1979. A group of top Navy brass showed up in New Orleans, and as top Navy brass will do, they showed up slapping each other on the back. How's the wife? How's the kids? How about those Astros? And they had a meeting to go to. There was an enlisted man there, and he was the one who this information came from, because he was not allowed to go into the briefing. Normally, you have an enlisted man stands at the door while the briefing is going on. This time, an officer stood at the door. The enlisted man was not allowed in. But after the briefing, the brass left. It looked like they lost their best friend. This was the map that was on the wall. And if you'll see it, it looks like the United States has been split in two. There's an inland sea where the Mississippi was. Most of California is gone. The coast on the east coast is gone. Florida is missing. And no explanation was ever given for this. President Obama's first security meeting. He shows up, he's shucking and jiving, he's happy camper. He walks in, and when he leaves, he appeared to be in shock. What caused all of this change in appearance? Well, there's a thing called Occam's razor. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a statement of fact that says when multiple solutions exist for a problem, the least complicated solution is usually right? So, we can deduce from this, if you practice enacting martial law, you intend to enact martial law. If you buy body bags, you plan on putting bodies in them. If you buy ammunition, you plan on shooting. You build detention centers, you plan on detaining people. You build massive bunkers, you plan on occupying them for some reason. And if you keep it all a secret, then the threat must be at least great enough to disrupt law and order if it's generally known, right? Does this make all sense? That's Occam's razor, that's the solution. So the question is, what is the disaster that's coming? Is it nuclear war? Is ISIS going to sneak in and attack us?
Must be global warming.
Must be global warming. When Obama said global warming was the greatest problem that threatens us, here's what's behind that statement. Here it is. Enter the Dragon. This is a shot of some years ago of what we thought was a star, Nibiru. What is Nibiru? Nibiru is a brown dwarf star, approximately 47,000 miles in diameter. It's literally a mini solar system. It has 6 planets rotating around it, and it's called a brown dwarf because it's in the stage where it's mostly iron. But it still has a reaction going on. It's extremely hot. Some of the planets around this thing are larger than the Earth. It orbits our sun with a period of 3,600 years. The ancient Sumerians saw it and named it because when it rampaged through our solar system, it did tremendous damage. It has a red iron oxide halo around it. And when it gets close to the sun's solar radiation impacts on it, and it makes the halo bend out and looks like wings. And when you see it in ancient Sumerian documents, it's depicted as a god with wings. It has a tail. This dragon has a tail, and that's part of the problem. Its tail is full of asteroids, rocks, dust, and it went through the Kuiper Belt, and it's dragging all of this stuff from the Kuiper Belt with it. It has its orbit through the inner solar system creates chaos of biblical proportion. Remember when the children of Israel came out of Egyptian captivity? They were told to follow the cloudy pillar by day and the fiery pillar by night. Enter the dragon. This is what happened then. Remember when the Nile turned red? Iron oxide, red, came down from the sky. Most likely that's where it came from. Nibiru has been tracked through the solar system for at least 50 years. The Vatican Mount Graham Binocular Telescope in Arizona has been watching this thing for years. It's one of the few infrared telescopes in the world, and it can see it. If you don't see it in infrared, you can't see it. It's pretty much invisible until it gets right upon you. Now, by December, it's right now, it's on the other side of the sun. It's headed this way. Here's what's happened in the past. It comes shooting through the solar system, it orbits around the sun, and it goes shooting back out again. Well, so the period of time that you've got to worry about is the time that you're going to pass through its tail. Its tail, and we'll get to it in a minute, is disastrous. So, at any rate, the most credible source, and I would not be bringing this to you except this guy, John Moore's website, popped up on my computer. This is exactly the same thing that happened to me when I learned about the Antichrist. I didn't go get it, it came and got me. If you Google him, and let me tell you, there is crazy people, conspiracy theorists, all kinds of junk on the internet. This guy was on the inside. He knows all of the inside story. If you find a page on him, in fact, one of his YouTube sites has that map of that the Navy brass saw in 1979, and that's your best source of information. Don't listen to a lot of that other stuff. It's just craziness. Now, Nibiru is the red dragon of Revelation 12. There appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. She, being with child, cried out, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. This is the sidereal heavens, the stars. A red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. This is not the dominion of the Antichrist. This is Nibiru. Here is what Nibiru looks like. It has 7 heads, 6 planets orbiting around a singular head, a singular star is what it is. You can see it in red here. This thing is not only a 7-headed dragon, but it's likely the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. Remember, there shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heavens, and all of the tribes of the earth shall mourn. Here is what I believe has happened. Instead of that thing coming into our solar system and orbiting and going back out, like it always has in the past, here's what's happened. They thought it was going to be here in 2012. It didn't make it. When it came through the solar system this time, I am convinced it lined up close to Jupiter and Saturn and slowed the thing down. What's going to happen now? It doesn't have enough inertia to get back out in its 3,600-year orbit. It's going to go in inter-Earth, inter-solar orbit. It's going to tear up the inner solar system. Now, you think it's not true. Here is a picture from the southern hemisphere. This is Nibiru. The governments of this world have tried to cover this up forever, for the last 50 years. They have built for themselves underground bunkers. They think they're going to be saved. They want you to continue to work and slave and pay taxes so they can build more bunkers and fill them with more food. Here is Nibiru as seen from Fort Yukon. Here it is right over here. You can see the crescent wings on it from here. Here's the solar wind. It's blowing that iron oxide off, making a wing out of it. It's right now behind the sun. We can't see it. Occasionally, you'll see on the internet, people will take a picture of it. It pops up above the sun, but then it goes back down again. We won't see it again, they're telling us, until December. This is the ancient Sumerian sign of Nibiru. It literally means the cross. Ladies and gentlemen, The world is fixing to deal with its imminent demise. The earth is going to pass through the tail of this thing, and it's going to pound this planet to pieces. Remember in Revelations where it said that rocks came down out of the sky up to 100 pounds? This is where it comes from. The best guess, these meteorite impacts are going to start to begin, it could be any day, but probably in October 2017. The Russian meteor in 2013 was most likely caused by this thing. Remember, some scientists said that they thought it was kicked out of Kuiper Belt orbit by something. Well, that something was Nibiru. At times when it approaches the Earth, it will block out the sun. This thing is, what did I say, 47,000 miles in diameter. When it gets close and it gets in between us and the sun, you won't see the sun. And the moon will appear red. And I beheld, when he opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell to earth, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she was shaken of a mighty wind. Everything that you have read and studied in Revelation now has a physical source. The poles will shift when this thing gets close because it's extremely magnetic. And anything that stands upright will be knocked down. The whole planet will be rippling with shock waves. Islands will be inundated. The elite of the world, they're going underground. And guess what? That's going to be their tunes. They think they pulled a fast one over on me and thee.
Carl,
Yes.
when we talked about October's 2017, you also said that December of 2016 is when
It's going to come around from the backside of the sun and you'll be able to see it.
right, but that doesn't mean we're actually going to see this tail for another,
Here, that is the big unknown. We will probably begin to see an increase in meteorite activity as soon as it's come into the solar system now, and it's spread junk all over the place. And when it comes back out again, it's continuing to spread it. When it came in, it left a trail over there. We'll be passing through that. I don't know when exactly. My suspicion is the big parts of it won't be hitting here until probably October of next year. You will probably begin to see an increase in meteorite activity probably almost any day now. Like I said, that Russian meteorite in 2013, that's probably came from here.
That's interesting because something was just posted on my Facebook about that. It did a bunch of stuff.
This coming
Yeah.
Thursday
Yeah.
night.
This Thursday, yeah.
But that's probably not associated with this, but just,
It kicked that thing out of the Kuiper Belt. And I don't doubt that this was just not
It's gonna be
a
risky for all of our satellite
They're
communications too.
toast.
They're gonna get knocked out.
They're toast.
Carl, the other thing is that you have to add in the idea of September of 2017 also.
That's why we're here. Remember, I told you, I thought from everything I could see that September of 2017 was the rapture of the church. Independent of this, I said, look at the evidence here, I went through all of that in some detail, and I said, this looks like we're out of here. And there's the date. Well, guess what? It's the date. We have to be out of here because, well, let's read on here. Matthew 24 said, unless those days be shortened, no life would survive. This thing is going in the inner solar system. For 7 years, it's going to make an orbit, but when it comes back around, it's on a collision course with Earth. Unless those days were shortened, there would be an impact, and this planet would be blown to smithereens. But guess what? The Lord said He was going to shorten those days. Remember, I always told you, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but in Revelation, it talks about a 360-day year again. Why 360-day year? Something had to impact with the earth to slow it down. Well, what are we, speeding it up or slowing it? We had to speed it up, yeah, from 365 to 360. This is the reason. So everything that you have read or studied in Revelation has its basis in this. Go ahead.
I'm just asking, okay, so if this happened in October and it's going to wipe out the world, what about the 7-year tribulation? Or
Oh, it's not going to wipe it out all at once.
okay.
First, we're going through the tail, and it's just going to beat the pudding out of the surface of the planet. And then we're going to have a reprieve for a bit until it reaches the next tail. And then we'll have another beating of the planet again. And then, at the end of the 7-year period, here comes Nibiru around the inner solar system on a direct collision course with the Earth. They're going to see that thing coming, getting bigger and bigger. And how do you hide from that? You
need
can't.
Tom Hanks in that movie.
Yeah.
Go up there and blow it.
See, Hollywood's movies that were based on Armageddon and all these others, those guys know about this. And that's where they came from. And there's a passage that I had taught on in times past, and I said, I don't know how it happens, but somehow the earth turns upside down. And at noon in Jerusalem time, the sun will go down. When this thing gets close to us, its poles are going to cause the earth to flip upside down, and Jerusalem in noon will suddenly be at midnight. It'll flip it over. These passages that everybody said, oh, those are just metaphors or similes. No, they're not. Now this one, and the heavens departed as a scroll when it is first rolled together, and every mountain and every island was moved out of their places. It departs as a scroll. That's the shock wave when the poles flip. And the kings of the earth, the great men and the rich men, the chief captains and the mighty men, and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of the mountains. This is what we're seeing right now. Every government agency in the world has prepared themselves, holes in the ground. I just saw this morning as I was reading the news on Yahoo that America has built an underground submarine base on the East Coast. Why do you need an underground submarine base unless there's some threat that's going to take it out? I saw the same story about China. They have an underground, really a tunnel that goes from the ocean right into a mountain. Every one of the major governments of this world are trying to protect their assets in more ways than one.
Yeah, you can take the next one.
You're half right on that.
Yeah. And just shorten that a few characters and you'll get the rest of it.
Let's think about the idea that is the earth going to be destroyed, or is it just going to be damaged and God will redo it?
It's going to be damaged severely. Remember, one of these plagues of Revelation was a star called Wormwood. Fell into the ocean, killed a third of everything on it. The earth's water sources become polluted, just like back in the days of the escape of Israel from Egyptian captivity. It all turned to blood. Guess what? It's all turning to blood again. You know why? This darn thing, we're going through that cloud around its head. Iron oxide dust is going to rain down, and this place will be almost uninhabitable. This thing is a severe source of infrared and UV energy. We are going to have an increase in UV radiation that's going to wipe out most of the crops of the earth. That's recorded in Revelation. Every single thing in the scripture that we have talked about that everybody said, oh, you can't interpret that as real. That's a metaphor. That's a simile. It ain't real. Hey, it's real. Now, here's the conclusion. All of the strange behaviors of the government of the world are caused by this thing. The elite of the world believe they can survive in an underground chamber. They will not. The tale of Nibiru was observed by a NASA technician who posted anonymously on the web what he saw. He saw this through, by the way, the Hubble telescope. They focused in on it. Scared the liver out of this guy. He said the tail contained literally trillions of asteroids from golf ball size to 500 miles in diameter. The Earth will definitely pass through the tail. The powerful of the Earth believe they can survive Nibiru if it doesn't go into a permanent orbit around the sun in the inner solar system, but it will. There is no escape. This is a Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Your only salvation is in Jesus Christ. There is no other way. You're either out of here on September the 23rd, or you are going to be involved in the greatest disaster this planet has ever seen. Our study of the prophets is no longer an academic exercise. It's a matter of the highest importance. All the terrors of Revelation now have a mechanism for being. Nothing in the book was an exaggeration. We will now watch and see what happens on earth as the people begin to become familiar with the notion they are fixing to be extinct. Where will they put their faith? Holes in the earth or the one who created the earth and sky? There's only speculation as to the exact time of the impact, but it should be seen in December, and with meteor strikes likely to begin heavily in October, just as we're here. What do you do? Over the next 13 months, you will be in contact with many people who will begin to learn of this catastrophe, and they are going to be in total despair. This will be the greatest opportunity that the church has ever had to offer salvation. When I say offer salvation, I mean salvation from the here and the now to the here and the after. The only thing that offers hope is if you have a knowledge of the prophets, and particularly Revelation chapter 12. The Greek word for rapture is harpazo, and one of its meanings is to rescue from the danger of destruction. Boy, that has a new meaning, doesn't it? So, may God bless and keep you in this time. Yes?
Well, and you were also saying at home that, when it said the mountains would be leveled, and, that was literal. That wasn't.
That is literally what's going to happen. That's what it said in Isaiah. It says all the mountains are going to be knocked down except for one, and that will be in Jerusalem. Remember the passage in Revelation 12 which said that the dragon spewed out a great flood to wipe out the children of Israel, but the earth opened and swallowed up the flood? And we all thought that was a flood of armies. No, it's not. It's a flood. It's water. Probably one of these things is going to hit in the Mediterranean, and there's a tsunami that's going to come to wipe out Israel. And guess what? Earth is going to open up, swallow it up. The surface of the planet, it all floats on the magna. Whenever an intense gravitational field gets in the neighborhood, it's going to stretch it all out. Where we have been mountain building, mountains are going to flatten out. All of it because of Nibiru. When this hit me, needless to say, I was shocked. It blew me away. It blew me away because everything that I'd been teaching on, and I was laughed at. I had a NASA astronaut in my class one day, and when I was talking about Joel, I told him someday the earth is going to turn upside down on its axis, and Jerusalem, being at noon, will suddenly be in the middle of the night. And he laughed to the point of hysteria and left. I wonder if he's laughing now because he knows. But you see, NASA and all the governmental agencies, the tendency of an organization is to protect itself, right? They don't care what happens to you. They want to protect themselves. There is a place in the Ozarks where all Navy submariners are retiring to. And the question always was, why are they all going to the Ozarks? That's where their underground bunkers are located. They're all over the country. And this explains why the budget is going to haywire and nobody cares. It explains why the Republicans passed the last budget without any argument. They're all in the know about this. Every last one of them, and you and I have been deceived. No big deal. That's standard operating procedure for governments, isn't it? So my point is this. I may be insane. All of the evidence that I have just given you may have another solution. I don't think so. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because I have looked at the evidence and I have compared it to the scriptures and the prophecies that I have already taught you. Everything has a one-to-one resolution. This is not a fantasy. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's absolutely true. And as time goes on, we'll watch and see what happens in December. We should be able to see this thing as it rounds the sun and heads this way. But when it does, then it was the worst of times and it was the best of
Would that be
times.
just without the aid of?
You'll be able to see it with the naked eye. The mainstream media has suppressed all this evidence. Anytime somebody would see this thing, and you go on the internet and you can see a YouTube video, a Russian fighter pilot had a camcorder on his dash, and he's flying along, he takes off, And he goes up and climbs up into the sun, and by George, there's the sun and another sun right next to it. There is a picture of a Navy F-18 catapulting off the deck of a carrier. And as it climbs out, goes into the sun, 2 suns. That one they lost. They didn't realize what they had done. Everywhere you go, you will see places on the internet where people have posted pictures of seeing something in the sun. And they don't know what they are. Well, we know what they are now. And yeah.
Okay, so 3.5 years into this in the tribulation, and they're talking about fleeing to the mountains, you know, because the abomination of desolation takes place. So, Petra, yeah. So, Petra obviously is all rock. Good safe place, lots of caves. But it won't be destroyed to the point then 3.5 years into it to where they will still be able to flee and the temple will still be standing.
Here's my suspicion on that. When we fly through the tail the first time, probably the northern hemisphere is the one that's going to get destroyed. And our government at that point will be unable to do anything. My suspicion is the Middle East may be spared. And consequently, that's why the United States never had a place in end time prophecy, because we got pounded. Now, life goes on, you know. This thing will come, pounded. United States is now inept, can't do anything. Now, life goes on in the Middle East. They didn't get hit so bad. So they go on about their business. But it goes through the tail again. More pounding all over the earth. But then it pulls out of the tail and we keep going around the earth again. That's when the Antichrist does his thing. But then at the very end, what happens, Nibiru comes around in its final orbit, 7 years, and it is going to absolutely hit the earth dead center. That's why the people of the earth are mourning, because unless those days were shortened, no life would have survived. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of NASA and how we've been able to go back in time and see where certain events occurred with the stars. So when you were talking about the idea of the fire at night and the Red Sea and all that kind of stuff, is that projected by them to that specific time?
When you go on the internet, you will find that the period is advertised at 3,600 years. That event of the children of Israel leaving Egyptian captivity was about 3,450 years ago. I think it's within the margin of error of what they know. So I think all the indications are Nibiru was the reason for all of those strange events which occurred back in that day and age. Yeah.
But you also have to remember that no matter what's hitting where, God is always going to protect Israel.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it says.
So,
Absolutely.
you know, it doesn't matter.
Israel is going to be
Israel is
protected,
going to be
but
protected.
there is going to be a giant earthquake which splits, as Zechariah 14 says, right through the Mount of Olives, and it's going to cleave in the middle.
But only when he comes.
That's when his foot sets down. That's right. And that is just as the earth is about to get splattered. And then he will take control, and miraculously, my belief is, Nibiru is going to go its way. Wherever it needs to go, it'll go away. And that's when we enter in the new heaven and the new earth here for the next 1,000 years. But the point that just blew me away, I have in the back of my head 1,000 things which I have studied in Bible prophecy, which I had no understanding of how they were fulfilled. I assumed a miracle from God. Well, in a sense, this is a miracle from God, but this is the way he works. In the eyes of men, this looks like a natural occurrence. You know, hey, we're just not lucky today. We got a sun in our solar system, another one. We got another whole solar system in our solar system. And gee, we were just unlucky, but hey, we're smart. We dug holes in the ground. We're going to protect ourselves. The rest of y'all, well, hey, that's why Obama said global warming was the worst thing that we had to look forward to. This is going to be some severe global warming. And it ain't what Al Gore said it was. Al Gore used this as a motivation for global warming. It had nothing to do with carbon in the atmosphere. It has to do with this stinking Nibiru coming, yeah.
And you also said when we were talking this week, that that's most likely why they are bashing Trump as much as they can bash him. They don't want him into their little elite system.
This
because
explains why the Republicans can't stand Trump. He's not an insider.
doesn't
He is
know
not
all
part
this.
of the government. They are scared to death that when he gets in there, he's going to let the cat out of the bag. And if he lets the cat out of the bag,
Then they'll
well,
leave
they
62
won't let
million
me in my
rounds.
underground cavern. They may go take it over. So you look at all of the evidence here, and once you understand the motivation behind it, it all makes sense. It didn't make any sense to me before. When I saw FEMA and Jade Helm, what did you think? Well, it was the military doing whatever the military does, but that was an exercise in establishing martial law. Yes.
And the other thing I can think of is the integrity of our military has degenerated since Obama's been in charge, and so.
Yeah, they've been busy building bunkers.
Yeah, their willingness to do, to stand against the American people is more apt to happen today because of their attitude.
Yeah.
Well, Obama's destroyed everything,
Oh, yeah.
and it only took him 8 years.
But if you look at all of the evidence that I have presented here, and as I pointed out in the front end of this thing, I have not done a detailed analysis of the evidence. I have seen enough evidence, though, to convince me that this is true and accurate. And you have to decide for yourself after you go and analyze the evidence. But I think it was so persuasive that I couldn't keep my mouth shut. And again, the way this thing came to me, this has been a historical fact that whenever something like this happens, it's not by accident. I wasn't looking for it, it came and found me. And so that's why I'm bringing it to you. I'm the watchman on the wall. Do with it as you will. But I think we have a mechanism now that I never had before, never knew about before, never wasn't looking for it. Like I said, it came and found me. Yeah.
And I think the seriousness of it is the idea about those that are not saved. It's so vitally important for us to really be praying and witnessing to our families the importance.
This is why I believe this is the greatest opportunity in the history of the world for evangelism, because I can tell you right now there is no hope.
I don't necessarily agree with that, only because we've witnessed to people and they shove us off, oh yeah, right, yeah. And now if I go tell them this is pretty.
You can't tell them this. That's the point. And that's why I'm asking, do you think I should post this?
Yes.
You want me to post it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll post it, but,
What lesson is it, what number?
huh?
What number?
98.
98.
I didn't put the number on there, but I was so nervous I forgot.
I'll update the list
Oh, please,
so
yeah.
that, and also, I think